This is the first alkaline water in Zambia. We were importing alkaline water for our clients in the clinics. And then we started selling it in our shops. And then one day it's like, this is insane. Importing bulky water, it costs a fortune. Can we not make this?
What did you do to just begin earning the customers' trust to believe in the Umoyo brand and what you were trying to do?
In terms of building trust, I think for Umoyo, we've been super consistent. From day one, we knew who we were, and we have stuck with that. And our brand values, which are natural, quality, and integrity, we've stuck with those brand values as well. So when people come into an Umoyo shop, it's always going to be natural products. And it's always going to be of a high quality. And people know that, and they associate the brand now with that quality. And then the integrity, that you can trust us, that we've been there for a long time.
Funding, right? Because all of this requires quite a lot of funding for you to set up the first shop in your parents' room. What did that look like for you, and how did it evolve or change to the point where you are today, which is manufacturing?
We started tiny. There was a tiny little budget. I had earned, obviously, some money from my previous job. I took a small loan from my parents. And that's how it started. But like I said, it started in my bedroom, and then in a rented flat, a house after that. Really shoestring budget. And we just grew very organically. Whatever little money we made was plowed back into the business. No unnecessary expenses. It was just keep expenses down and plow back whatever profit. And that's how we've grown. That's how we've grown.
So what are some of the lessons that you learned early on while you were building Umoyo that would be really relevant for other women entrepreneurs? And how exactly do you think they get to limit themselves to just fulfill their potential?
I love the quote by Tony Robbins: the psychology of the business owner is the limiting factor in any business. And at first I didn't believe that. I thought, what's limiting me is I don't have the money to do what I want. I don't have the right people. There are so many other things. It's the economy, the exchange rate. That's what's limiting our business. What, you're telling me it's my mindset? No, come on. And that's the thing, that when it comes to our mindset, it's like a blind spot. We don't see it. We're so used to the way we think and our beliefs that we don't even see how we're limiting ourselves.
Hello and welcome to Beyond the Pivot, the podcast where we bring you honest, unfiltered journeys from Africa's entrepreneurs and innovators.
I'm Kabwela Malupande, joined by my co-host, Martin Vitek. Each episode, we dive deep into the realities of building and growing businesses on our continent. Let's get started. This is Beyond the Pivot.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Beyond the Pivot podcast, a podcast that spotlights everything that's happening around the entrepreneurial ecosystem across the African continent. Today, I'm excited to bring you an exciting guest, someone I've followed for a long time and continue to follow. This is Kim Otteby. She's the managing founder and managing director at Umoyo Health. And Kim is also quite a passionate leader, a motivational speaker, and she's quite passionate about health and fitness. And today I'm proud to just unpack the conversation around how she's built a really successful company here in Zambia. Kim, welcome to the Beyond the Pivot podcast.
Thank you so much. It's a real pleasure and an honor to be here.
Kim, is your favorite color white? Because I noticed you wear white quite a lot.
Yes, I love to wear white. Absolutely. Very good observational skills there.
Yes. There's also one thing I observed. I've been watching you start team meetings at Umoyo, and I think this is at your factory. And you have been intentional about starting them with an activity. This could be a breath exercise. This could be shaking things off. If this was like you were hosting a podcast, what kind of activity would you do? Would it be a breath exercise? Like, how would you kick off a podcast to just get us started and in the zone and groove?
Well, that's the whole thing, why we do that. And we do it every single morning. We call it priming. So we tend to do some form of exercise to move our body because that's what generates energy. Then we do some breath work as well to really wake us up. This is 7:30 in the morning, so it's early in the morning. And then we do something for the mind to focus the mind going into the day. So we offer gratitude, and then we finish with a prayer. And sometimes we'll also do some inspirational thing as well. But we start every day like that. And it's really about elevating our state, putting ourselves in a state where we're feeling good physically and mentally. So it could be anything really. It's your podcast, you choose, but I would probably do like a little quick breathing exercise just to get us going. And I'm very happy to do one
Please take
with
us
you
through.
now.
Yes,
Okay, cool.
please, you can lead
So
one.
this is a breathing exercise that I learned probably 25 years ago, and it's still with me. It's still something that I use day to day in my own life. And it just immediately, if I know I'm going into like an important meeting or even like this podcast or just something where I need to be on it and perform, my neurons need to be firing, this is a breathing exercise that I do. It's called 20 Connective breaths, and it's 4 short breaths followed by 1 long breath, and we do it 4 times. So it's super simple. We're designed to breathe through our nose. So we do it through our nose, and we do it vigorously. Okay? So I'll just demonstrate and then we'll do it together. So it goes like this. So that's 1 round. Now I know I look a bit crazy when I do it, but that's okay. You can close your eyes. So are you ready? You want to do it with me? Okay,
Let's
here
go.
we go.
Are we
3,
closing
2,
our
1.
eyes?
Yeah. Well, that's up to you. I'm going to keep them. I'm going to keep my eyes on you. Just make sure you're doing it correct.
Let's do
Okay,
it.
here we go. 3, 2, 1. The last one.
That was so
How do you feel?
amazing, Kim.
Do you feel a bit of
Relax.
tingling?
Yes. I think that was much needed. I needed that to get us going.
Yeah, so the
On this.
tingling, it's just the oxygen flooding your brain. So it just wakes you up instantaneously. It's a great little exercise.
And I know we'll talk about this later on, talk about Umoyo itself, right? But has that always been your company culture? Because you spoke about how you do this every day with the team early in the morning. Has this always been your company culture?
When a company is small, you're as the owner or the manager, you're more connected with each individual. You know everybody's name. You interact more. But as it grows, you lose a little bit of that, especially as kind of the managing director of the company. I don't know. We have 150 employees now. I don't know everyone's name. So in the beginning, the culture, it's easier for me to it was easier for me to know and be sure that the culture filtered down to everyone. But when the company grows, that's harder and things can get lost along the way. So therefore, we have implemented certain just strategies, things that we do to make sure that the culture continues and is intact. So it's changed over time, I guess, is the answer to that question.
Perfect. And for listeners who might be seeing you or listening to you for the first time, can we get to who's Kim exactly? Who's Kim Otteby, and what would you tell us about some key moments that have just defined who you are as a person? I do know as you grow, right, in your 20s, you're someone else, probably in your 30s, you're this particular human being, and in your 40s. But who's Kim today, and what are some of the things that have shaped?
Well, that's a huge question. And yes, of course, as time goes, as we go through life, we change, we shift. And that's certainly true for me as well. I was born in Sweden, but I came to Africa in 1980. So My home, my life, it's here in Africa. Most people know me as the Umoyo lady. I'm the founder and managing director of Umoyo Natural Health, which I founded almost 20 years ago. It was back in 2007. So we're almost hitting 20 there. So it's been an incredible journey. But as with any human being, we're multidimensional, multifaceted, and I'm no different. There are many other things that make me who I am, not just Umoyo. Invariably, if someone introduces me, they'll always say, this is Kim from Umoyo, but there's more to me than just that. I think something that has stayed with me my whole life is my love for fitness and sport. In the early days, it was windsurfing. But I live in a landlocked country here in Zambia, so there's not a lot of windsurfing going on. But in the recent past, it became CrossFit. And I did CrossFit for 10 solid years, training probably 6 times a day. And not many people know this, but I owned and operated a large CrossFit gym here in Zambia for 5 years, which I loved. I put all my passion into that. And more recently, really what my passion has grown into is personal development, inspiring others to, and inspiring and helping them align with who they truly are and discovering their purpose, and helping people to identify what is holding them back. I truly believe that we are our biggest limiting factor in our own lives, in every facet of our lives. So identifying that and how can we transcend that in order to really fulfill our potential. So that is something I work with a lot now, professional speaking, professional workshops, both for individuals as well as for corporate clients.
There's so much I want to double click on, but I'll get back to the beginning of the story. So Sweden is known for what I would say building for the world, right? We have some of the largest companies that are almost household names across the world, from the likes of IKEA. We have Spotify, which is my music app. For those in the mining sector around here, there's SKF, who are working with parts and boats and everything that they get to do. Would you say that has always been part of your DNA as well, to build and be entrepreneur, build the scale of a company like Umoyo that you do have today?
No, definitely not. No. And remember, the history of Sweden is socialism. Everyone's equal, so although it's incredible how many beautiful companies have come out of Sweden and some incredible entrepreneurs, but many entrepreneurs also left Sweden because of the history there. But no, entrepreneurship and business was not something that I had set my eyes on early in my youth or anything like that. Not at all. I would not say it's in my DNA, although my father certainly has an adventurous, a bit of an entrepreneurship spirit in him. So perhaps part of that was passed down to me, but it was not an aspiration of mine in any way.
Then what sparked that switch for you to become an entrepreneur? I'm pretty curious if you say it's not part of your DNA or you never imagined to get in this space.
Yeah, so I started with a very traditional path with regards to work. In school, I always try to do my best so that I could get good grades. I was a good girl, go to the next grade, and I continued. I try to get into the best university and then do the best I could there and then get the best job I could. And I was very much influenced by what society thought success looked like, and very narrow-minded. So after university, there were really 2 jobs that I considered. Out of all the millions of jobs I could have, it was either you become a strategy consultant or you become an investment banker. Those were 2 really good jobs. And I didn't like anything to do with finance and banking, so I chose strategy consulting. So I was just climbing that ladder, never really questioning, is this what I want to do? It's that's one of the best jobs I can get, so that's what I'm going for. And it was only when I reached that and got that job that I finally took a breath and asked, well, now what? Is this it? Is this what I've worked so hard for? And it was a great job, great people, nothing wrong with it. But I just realized very early on that this was not my purpose in life. This was not why I was on this earth, to be a strategy consultant. But I learned a lot, and it certainly aided me later on in my career in running my own business. So I have no regrets. But it got to a point where I couldn't do it anymore. It really didn't align with what I wanted. But then at the same time, I didn't really know what I wanted. I was young. I just knew this is not it. This is not it. And eventually I decided to quit, and I made a decision. And it truly was a decision to figure out what my purpose was. Why was I on this earth? And I strongly believe that in order to get to purpose, one way at least, and the way that I followed, is to look at what are you passionate about? I believe passion will bring you to your purpose. And I had never really allowed myself to truly do that, because what I discovered was my passion had always been health, natural health, and nutrition in particular. But somewhere along the line, I had internalized that, well, you can't make money from nutrition. You got to get a proper job to make money. That's what success is. So I'd not allowed myself to explore some of these other things. But because now I had tried the more traditional route, I tried to climb that ladder, and I realized that that's not what I wanted. I was now willing to explore. And that's what I did. I decided I'm going to go after my passion, health, nutrition. So I went back to university to study nutritional medicine. And then I studied many other healing modalities after that: iridology, colon hydrotherapy, and so on and so on. The list is very, very long. And I went off and did internships with some of the best naturopathic doctors and clinics, mainly in the US. And my dream started to unfold. I want to open a clinic, a health clinic, a natural health clinic. I want to help people. So that's kind of how it evolved. And the next question was, well, where am I going to do this? And my parents were still in Africa. They're still here today. And I went to visit them. And I hadn't been back to Africa for a while. And as soon as I set foot in Zambia again, I'm like, this is where my heart is. This is where I grew up. This is where I want to live and make a life for myself. But there's no market for natural health. I was talking about cleansing and detoxification, and this was back in 2005, 2006. People weren't talking about these things here in Zambia. Nobody was really interested or really understood what I was going on about. But I decided, you know what, I'm going to try anyway. So I'll just, let's see how it goes. And it started with actually me organizing a health fair. I didn't know anyone here really because I'd been away for quite a while. And I just, anyone who seemed a bit interested in health, I invited them to this health fair. And I was actually blown away how many people came and supported this. And that's when I decided this is what I'm doing. I'm opening a health clinic here in Zambia, a natural health clinic where we're doing detoxification programs. And it started very small. In fact, it started from my bedroom in my parents' house. And then eventually I rented a little flat and I turned one of the rooms into a therapy room. The other room was my office, and then there was the bedroom. And then after a while, I rented a whole house, and that became the clinic. And it truly was a cutting-edge clinic because I had drawn on all the things that I had learned from abroad and brought them together. So we were doing some phenomenal work, really, helping people overcome chronic illnesses. And then it dawned on me, we're getting people onto these. Yeah?
And I wanted to just, Kim, I want you to take me back to one thing you just spoke about, right? That moment of where you're in a job, frustrated, you don't feel fulfilled. What was that like for you? And leading up to the process of quitting? Because I would like to believe we have so many people out there, even some of our viewers that might be at that particular moment in life where they're like, hey, I feel like this is not working for me. Could you describe maybe that experience, what you were going through, especially the fact that you didn't even know what was coming next? Maybe if you could just speak about that a bit more before we even get to Umoyo.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, like I said, I knew quite early on that this was not what I wanted to do. And there was nothing inherently wrong with the job. It was just, I didn't feel that this was my place. And, or I should say, I'm not a quitter. I didn't identify or see myself as a quitter. So I'm not going to quit. I'm going to stick with it. And that's what I did. Day in and day out, I stuck with it. I did the job. I did the best I could. It was just everything, my mental health, my physical health. I wasn't taking care of myself. And I was waking up with this dread in my stomach every morning. And over time, it just got worse and worse and worse to the point where I can't get up in the morning and do this. I can't face this anymore. And it really, I left it so long that it got to a breaking point. And one morning I woke up and I'm not going into the office today, and I'm not going in any more day. I'm quitting. I quit today. I can't do it anymore. So I let it get to that point, which I do not recommend at all. But then again, I was also young. I had no responsibilities and commitments. I didn't have a family or kids or anything. I think it's very different now, the age I am, more responsibilities. I just had myself to take care of. And therefore, I think I was also a bit more courageous, brave back then, to just say, okay, I quit. I felt that, there was no choice. And I felt, I'll land on my feet. I'll figure this out. But once again, I had no real responsibilities at that time. So it was easier. If I were to advise someone who is in that position today, I wouldn't do it so abruptly. I would say, okay, you recognize that perhaps this job is not 100% in alignment with what you want to do. Well, okay, figure out what it is you want to do. And once you have an idea of that, you can start that as a little side hustle. Devote a few hours a week. And then if you see that it's starting to gain traction, okay, well then put more time. See, maybe if you could take a sabbatical from work or some, a few months leave, or come up with a plan where you can really test this idea. So you're not risking everything. Maybe do it in a slower process. But like I said, for me, I just went full out, but I was very young, maybe arguably a bit stupid at the time as well. But I felt I had nothing to lose at all.
Mm. And I was wondering, while you're advising someone to take it in bits and chunks, if that was a hard lesson based on what you had gone through building Umoyo.
How do you mean? Maybe elaborate on that.
So I'm saying, you're advising for you, you had to drop everything in the moment, right? And just jump straight in at the deep end. And I'm saying your advice, asking someone to take it easier, dedicating a few hours and then later on dedicating more time, could have been based on the lesson that you learned from building Umoyo in the early days, which I'm happy for us to get into. So for someone who doesn't know, because we've mentioned Umoyo quite a number of times, could you tell us about Umoyo right now? What is Umoyo? What problem do you solve? And for context, because we have quite a broad audience from Zambia and across the African continent, what's the size of Umoyo, so that we just have everything into context, right?
So like I said, we started like a little health clinic where we're doing these cutting edge health therapies. And then what happened was that realizing that we got people on healthier lifestyles and healthier paths, but there were no quality products to support them in Zambia at that time. Zambia looked very different back then, 20 years ago. So that's when I opened Zambia's first health shop.
If you're enjoying this episode, take a second to like, share, and subscribe. It helps us reach more people and keep these conversations going. Thanks for your support.
There was no health shop. So I opened Zambia's first health shop, tiny little shop at Arcades. We only had 2 malls back then in Lusaka. it was truly, I was just walking through arcades, the shopping mall, and saw an empty shop, and then had the idea, went straight to center management and say, hey, this is my idea. Can I rent this shop off you? And they said, yeah, no problem. And I went to one of the compounds and got some shelves made, and we kitted out the shop on a shoestring budget. But that's how it started. So opened Zambia's first health shop. Today we have 9 retail shops, so it's grown quite a bit. And we have an online shop as well, so we can send products anywhere in Zambia and beyond, for that matter. And then in the more recent past, in the last 5 years, we pivoted also to now become manufacturers. So we manufacture our own healthy drinks and foods that are sold not just in our shops, but across all the supermarkets in Zambia. So like I said, it's been quite a journey in different areas that we have touched on along the way.
And you spoke about because that's great, because you have been in the health business and building the health shops, and you went on and studied about just generally healthcare and different forms of it. Was that in Zambia, or was that outside of Zambia? Because you set up shop in Zambia.
Yeah. No, so this was before I even considered Zambia. I was still in Europe. So my strategy consulting days, that was in London. That was where I had a life. So I did nutritional medicine in the UK. And then, as I said, did various other modalities, some online courses, some in the US, and so on. So this was before I even got to Zambia.
Okay. So I asked that question because I wanted you to give us more perspective to the process that you went through, because you are taking knowledge that you picked from the US, right? Your education, learning, and experience from there. And now you had to come to this market, which had a whole different customer dynamic, right? And customer profile. What did that process look like of now designing a product that would fit for the Zambian market?
Yeah, it was very tough on many levels, even just on a regulatory level. We were the first real natural health clinic. They didn't know how do we position you? You're not a hospital. You're not a dentist. You're not a physio. You're not a traditional healer. So where do we put you? We don't know how to fit you into the regulation. That's changed now. Same with the health shop. There was no regulation around a health shop. They try to fit us into a pharmacy and forced us to have pharmacists on the shop floor, because the regulation wasn't there yet. And like you said, also, people hadn't been exposed yet to a lot of these therapies and programs that we were coming with. And back then, the internet, it was pretty new, and we certainly didn't have social media. So we were relying on more traditional media sources for our information, and books, magazines. You couldn't just Google or use AI to get this information. So yeah, it looked very different. But I think in Zambia, although we value modern medicine, we still have a tradition of the herbal medicine. And I think people are quite open to using both, not necessarily choosing one over the other, but being open to using both. So I think that was in our favor.
That's great context. And like you said, because at the time, and I think many versions of this exist, we have the traditional healers who will make these concoctions that you don't know where the ingredients are coming from, but they work, right? And you also have these people that would just jump on a bus and say, hey, I have this particular medicine, whoever is on a bus, please grab this, it will help you with this. But what did that look like for you to earn trust in the market? Because I would like to believe that's really difficult because you're fighting regulation. You're like, hey, I'm not a pharmacy. Why are you putting all of this on me? On the customer side, again, hey, we're not the typical traditional healer kind of process. What did you do to just begin earning the customer's trust to believe in the Umoyo brand and what you were trying to do?
Yeah, so one of the first things actually I did when I came back to Zambia was to locate some local herbalists. I wanted to learn also, what is the market? What herbs are available? What are people using? So I did a course with one of the local herbalists here, Mr. Tembo, and he still goes out in the bush and gets herbs, and he has a few formulas that we sell at Umoyo that we've been selling all this time. So I did a lot of that. But in terms of building trust, I think for Umoyo, we've been super consistent. From day one, we knew who we were, and we have stuck with that. And our brand values, which are natural, quality, and integrity, we've stuck with those brand values as well. So when people come into an Umoyo shop, it's always going to be natural products. And it's always going to be of a high quality. And people know that, and they associate the brand now with that quality. And then the integrity, that you can trust us, that we've been there for a long time. During that time, we've established credibility. In the beginning, it was through a lot of the work that I did, all the knowledge that I brought. I wrote in the national newspaper every single week for years. 7 years. I was on national TV in the morning doing breakfast shows, showing people how to make healthy snacks and things. I was talking about health probably 3 times a week on radio. So there was a lot of groundwork there to establish that credibility in the beginning. And also, I think having the clinic as well in those early days, people came for advice with various health concerns, also gave us credibility. And then with the health shops, the fact that we were interacting with customers and listening to them. It was a two-way conversation. It wasn't like we're just piling products on you. What do you want? What are your problems? So it was a conversation. But I think the biggest thing over time has been our consistency and staying true to who we are as a brand.
I love that, Kim. Especially for the entrepreneurs, because it's not just the case of, hey, we have all of these traditional herbalists. I've had my learning and education in the US. I'm coming to set up what I think would work, right? I love the story of Mr. Tembo, because it's almost like you're now trying to embed yourself in the ecosystem in this niche market, and also doing the pre-work of customer discovery and educating the customer on what you're exactly doing. Can we maybe talk about also just funding, right? Because all of this requires quite a lot of funding for you to set up the first shop in your parents' room. What did that look like for you, and how did it evolve or change to the point where you are today, which is manufacturing?
Yeah, we started tiny. There was a tiny little budget. I had earned obviously some money from my previous job. I took a small loan from my parents. And that's how it started. But like I said, it started in my bedroom, and then in a rented flat, a rented a house after that. Really shoestring budget. And we just grew very organically. Whatever little money we made was plowed back into the business. No unnecessary expenses. It was just keep expenses down and plow back whatever profit. And that's how we've grown. That's how we've grown over time. It's just the last few years where we finally have gotten to a size where we're able also to get a bank loan to fund our development at MFES.
Brilliant. So it's purely been you financing this business, family support, and later on a bank loan. Has there been any other investors that approached you along the way to become partners and join you on the Umoyo journey?
If you are enjoying this episode, take a second to like, share, and subscribe. It helps us to reach more people and keep these conversations going. Thank you for your support.
No. But because of that also, it's been a very slow journey. It takes time. It takes time. We never got like a full cash injection, which just grew us very quickly. Not at all. It's been really much, saving every penny, shoestring budgets. For instance, our first product, I have it here, the alkaline water. This is the first alkaline water in Zambia. We were importing alkaline water for our clients in the clinic because it was really good as part of our programs. And then we started selling it in our shops, this imported alkaline water. And then one day it's like, this is insane. Importing bulky water, it costs a fortune. Can we not make this? And we thought, well, I'm sure we could. Let's find out how we can do it. We had virtually a zero. I mean, it was a tiny, tiny budget for this. And we certainly had no facility. But what we did at our head office, we converted one of our bathrooms into a water production facility. And it was 2 by 1 meters. It was a tiny little thing. It was all above board. We got all the government agencies to approve it, all the quality controls, all of that, but tiny. That's how we started. And we started selling the water in our shops. It took us 1 year to get this water into ShopRite. Every other week we were there. Please, can you stock our water? No. But we kept with it. And eventually they said yes. And, now this water you can find every supermarket across Zambia. Cafes, restaurants, it's all over the place. But that's how we started, in that little converted bathroom. Okay. And never in my wildest dreams could I have imagined, well, how do we get from there to owning our own facility with fully, with the equipment to purify and bottle the water, a full bottling plant. How do you do that? I had no idea. It seemed impossible because we didn't own, we had no capital, we didn't really have any money. And I think we just kept an open mind. We had this vision of this is what we're going to do. And we kept taking steps, and each step we took, kind of the road unfolded in front of us. And we were very lucky with MFES. This is the multi-facility economic zone that the government established, because there you don't have to buy the land up front. We had no money to buy land. So you still get a title deed, but you pay a smaller amount, like a lease yearly, but you still get the title deed. So that's how we solved that problem. Okay, we don't have money to buy land, but we can still get land at MFES. And then, okay, well, we don't, how do we get a bank loan? We have no collateral. We don't own anything. How do we get a bank loan? And here in Zambia, it's not the easiest thing, right? But we were very lucky. One of the banks, they had partnered with USAID, where USAID guaranteed half the loan. And this was for female-led businesses. So they were willing to take a risk on us. So we got a loan from them. We used that money to build the buildings on this land at MFES. And as we built the buildings, that became the collateral. So that's how we solved that problem. So there's been some luck along the way, but also we didn't just say, we don't have any money, we don't have any resources, this won't work, right? We had a dream, we had a vision, and we just kept moving forward.
That's brilliant, Kim. Again, so much I want to go deep on. And I'm asking myself, what do I double click on first? Okay, the first bit. So there's this culture, and I think you've brilliantly unpacked it around, hey, move fast, grow the business fast. What's your perspective on that? And especially around startups, right? There's always this culture for you to just quickly move, expand the business. Let's keep moving fast. What's your perspective on that, especially with reference to your experience where you've taken it easy?
I'm not I don't know what the best practice is. I'm not an expert on startups or anything like this. But I know for me, who had no business experience, I didn't know how to manage people. I didn't know how to lead. I didn't know anything about HR or accounts or anything really. So going a bit slowly or slower served me very well because it gave me time to learn these skills as we grew. As the business grew, I grew with the business. We kind of grew together because the skill set of an early startup how what Umoyo was back in the day compared to the skill set necessary now to lead this business, it's night and day. It's the same person can't manage that, right? So I've had to grow and evolve with the business. So for me, I'm very grateful that we took it step by step. It also allowed us to make many mistakes and learn along the way. We weren't necessarily risking everything all at once. It was small steps, so just small steps. When we can grow, we grow. And then we make some mistakes, we learn from it, we improve our systems, and we grow some more, and that's how we did it. I'm not saying that's the best way to do it, but that's how we did it.
So what are some of the lessons that you learned early on while you were building Umoyo that would be really relevant for other women entrepreneurs? And how exactly do you think they get to limit themselves to just fulfill their potential?
Oh, there's so many things. There's so many things. I love the quote by Tony Robbins, how it's the psychology of the business owner that is the limiting factor in any business. The psychology of the business owner is the limiting factor in any business. And at first, I didn't believe that. I thought, what's limiting me is I don't have the money to do what I want. I don't have the right people. There's so many other things. It's the economy, the exchange rate. All that's what's limiting our business. What, you're telling me it's my mindset? No, come on. And that's the thing, that when it comes to our mindset, it's like a blind spot. We don't see it. We're so used to the way we think and our beliefs that we don't even see how we're limiting ourselves. So that in order to understand those things and identify how you're limiting yourself, you have to have an interest to explore that. It's not just going to present itself to you. For me, it was really taking a deep dive within myself and facing some of my fears, my doubts, all of these things that we tend to we don't really want to go there. It's not comfortable. But I believe that that's how you really get to know yourself. And when you get to know yourself, you can then identify some of these beliefs that might not even be conscious. They might be really deep down in your subconscious, but it's programming. And that programming, it runs everything in your life, your actions, your decisions, everything. So I believe it's very important to take that deep dive, really get to know yourself so you can see how you are limiting yourselves with your beliefs in particular. Yeah. But that you got to want to do that. It's not just going to happen. You got to really want to do that. But it's easier to focus on the external stuff. I want to get the right strategy. I want to figure out the money, the resources, get the right people. We focus on all this external stuff and we don't really want to go within. So that has been a real lesson for me. And that is, like I was saying before, that is what I now teach people about, to help identify those things within themselves and how to overcome them so that we're no longer limiting ourselves and so that we can truly achieve our potential.
I just realized one of the most difficult things of being a podcast host is when the guest is dropping gems, right? You're trying to digest and internalize. At the same time, you're listening. At the same time, you have to drive the conversation. That was so insightful, Kim. Yeah, so everyone focusing on the external as the key thing, but forgetting that it's the internal work that needs to happen. The psychology of the business owner to lead a business plays a key role as well in its growth. Thanks for that. So let's get back to the business again. So set up the first shop. You have been importing products into the country. What were some of the first signals that started indicating to you that, hey, I think there's an opportunity for us to begin manufacturing? And what did that look like, really?
So I wish I had discovered this much earlier on in the journey. But unfortunately, I can't put this down to my brilliance or anything like that. It was necessity, pure necessity. It was do or die, survival. That's really how this came about. And, whatever, even in the early days, whatever we could source locally, we would always source locally because it's easier, right? It's so much easier than dealing with imports, and it's cheaper. But unfortunately, with a lot of health products, there was no real market here. So we ended up importing a lot of products from abroad, from all over the world, really, which we sold in our shops. And during COVID, when COVID hit, our supply lines, a lot of them got affected very negatively. We just couldn't get products. We couldn't get vitamin C. And if we had vitamin C during COVID in our shops, we would have been making money. We couldn't get the stuff because the supply lines had been so disrupted. And then the kwacha really started running against the dollar. It started losing value against the dollar very, very quickly. And we were importing using dollar, foreign currency, right? All our rents, and at that time we had 12 shops plus our head office. All the rents were in dollars at the time here in Zambia. So all the rents were in dollars. We are purchasing in dollars, yet we're earning in kwacha. We're selling our products and earning kwacha. And the kwacha is losing value against the dollar. So now what was happening is that the business was failing. We were not making enough money to cover the rents, and because our rents was going up in terms of the kwacha value, and of course to buy more products, and we were losing money. Month after month, we were losing more money. And this is really scary, especially when it's your business. You've put your whole passion into this, so much time and effort, and you want it to do well, and it's like like your little baby, and now it's dying, it's fading. So it was a really scary time for Umoyo, and it was, well, do we let this business die? Do we give up? Is this it? And we weren't willing to do that. I certainly wasn't willing to do that. Well, okay, what are our options? What do we do then? We have to do something drastic. It's only so many months that you can sustain with losses. And that's when we said, well, you know what? Why don't we start manufacturing? Why don't we, instead of relying on imports so much, why don't we source locally raw materials, turn them into some product, some innovative health product, and then sell it, not just in our shops, because our shops are very niche, very limited, but products that we can take to a wider market in the supermarkets, so we can reach all of Zambia. So that's what we did. That's what we decided to do. And we started with the water, and then we did our juices, and then it became more and more products, porridge, teas, and so on. So it was not a brilliant idea that it was out of necessity. The business was dying, and we needed to do something drastic. And like I said, I wish we had done this like 20 years ago when we started, because this is where the real opportunity is. The retail, it's very niche and it's limited. Zambia is not that big of an economy, So now going into manufacturing, we're opening up a whole new market. And not only that, in the future, who knows? We want to export this stuff, earn some foreign exchange as well. So the opportunity is huge. But of course, manufacturing, a completely different ball game, new set of skills, requires a lot of capital as well. So it was a very fast learning curve. We've made a lot of mistakes, but that is where the growth potential is. And I'm very, very happy we made that decision and took that step.
Looking at where Umoyo is, I am very confident and strongly believe exporting to other markets is something that will happen quite soon. Because I believe in the product. I mean, my sister, who loves and is so passionate about health more than myself, would always rush to almost every Umoyo store looking for bentonite clay because she doesn't like the fluoride in her toothpaste. So she would always make these concoctions around toothpaste. And so looking at where you are right now, I do believe exporting is something that's within reach for you. So setting up the operations around manufacturing, what looking back now that you've done it, how many years now have you been manufacturing? Kim?
Gosh, I lose track of time, but like I said, we started really
Over
slowly.
5 years?
So maybe 5 years. Yeah. but it was very, very slow. And it was, to start with, very much cottage industry. And we still have not fully mechanized by any stretch of the imagination. It's still, one step at a time.
And because I'm just trying to imagine from a business perspective, firstly, you're in health clinics. Manufacturing is a whole different ballgame, right? Now you have to learn so many other different things as a business leader. Looking back, what are some of the things that you could have done differently, especially for some of even the challenges that you encountered during setting up this particular manufacturing setup for Umoyo? Looking back, what would you double down on, and what would you change or do differently?
Well, in the beginning, because we didn't have a lot of money and we were constantly trying to save money, you try and do everything yourself. You try and figure it out yourself. We were mavericks in terms of how can we do this, And I think I would have invested in professional people earlier. I think that's a big thing. People who really knew their stuff when it came to manufacturing. But sometimes you don't know what you don't know. But we a lot of the early days was simply trial and error. Another thing that was we had the health clinic, and then we became this retail company, and we never really required space. We had our head office, and when a shipment came in with all our products, it would be chaos for a few days, unpacking boxes, counting everything, and then everything would go out to the shops. Manufacturing is a little bit different. Suddenly you need space. And we weren't prepared for this, to be honest. But we started looking for space, and warehousing, we quickly realized, is quite expensive, between $3,000 and $5,000 per month, which was, when you're just starting out, this was like a whole new thing for us. It certainly wasn't generating that kind of cash to justify having a warehouse for $5,000 a month. So we had to look at other options. So we rented another house and then another house. We ended up with 4 domestic houses where we did our manufacturing from. And even then, we quickly ran out of space. We just didn't have the space even for storage. And that's where we had to then take the decision, well, are we going to remain cottage industry? Are we going to be small scale? Or are we going to take this to the next level? And if we take it to the next level, we need to figure the space issue out. And that's what we decided to do. No, it doesn't make sense to stay like this. We want to take it to that next level. We want to grow this. And that's when the whole MFES project started, which we started maybe 3 years ago and completed maybe a year and a half ago or so. So it's all very recent, but yeah. So space was a huge issue for us. Now we have professional people, but in the beginning, in the early days, we try to do it on our own, which I wouldn't recommend. And then there are many things. You see, with manufacturing, what it teaches you is that everything matters. The supply chain, the quality control, the machinery, the packaging, the regulations. And if one of those things kind of fails, the whole chain falls apart. With retail, it was a completely different business. So it's understanding everything in that chain. So if we look at just the supply chain, for instance, we deal with natural materials. They're not grown all year round. It's seasonal. Well, how does that work? We don't have storage to store all the baobab that we need for the whole year. Well, how do we figure that out? Contracts with aggregators, farmers, coming up with the price for the year. And I cannot tell you how many times we've entered into contracts and then where we've agreed on a price and agreed on how much we were going to buy every month, only to get to the point where the supplier comes back to us and says, well, yeah, the other week someone offered me cash for the rest of the stock, so I went with them. And we're like, well, what about our contract? So there have been a lot of hard lessons along the way. So it's very much also about establishing those long-term relationships with your suppliers. So you develop that trust there and understanding how the market works and having backups. Now, well, I can give you another example. Our labels, we didn't have labels for our juices for 1 month because we were relying on a manufacturer of labels, and their machine broke down and they were waiting for spare parts, which never seemed to come. And it took us such a long time to get plates developed for the labels with other label producers. So for 1 month, we couldn't sell our juices. So having backups, identifying the risks. With the power crisis that happened last year, the year before, where we suddenly didn't have any electricity, our business almost went under because of that. And it wasn't necessarily that we weren't able to manage manage our power, our production, but it was all the people feeding into us as well. For instance, we don't make our own packaging. 50% of our business is juices and drinks. Suddenly we couldn't get bottles. We couldn't get bottles because our suppliers did not have electricity to produce the bottles, right? So now 50% of our business overnight gone. And we couldn't do anything about it. Not in our wildest dreams did we ever think that something like that could happen, right? So it's now we're much more mindful. We really look at, well, what are the risks? What if that happens, or what if that happens? So trying to be a little bit more proactive rather than reactive. Manufacturing, yeah, it's a whole different ball game. And you also have to be very patient. The success is not gonna happen overnight. It takes time, especially if you don't have tons of resources to throw at it, and like us, doing it a little bit step by step. Every week, every month, I feel that we're getting stronger, and we've faced so many challenges, but we make sure we learn from them. And we sit back and analyze, what did we do well and what did we not do well? And how can we do better next time? What are the gaps? So we're constantly trying to improve. And I think that's why we've survived all these years as well.
You said it takes longer and won't happen overnight. And I would like to believe yours happened overnight. It just took 15 years, right? And I bet that will be the case for many others that are trying to build. Take 10, 15, 20 years, but it will eventually happen. You spoke about farmers as well as part of your suppliers, Kim. I'd like to believe you work with farmers. And for many, farmer empowerment sounds like an abstract concept, right? Could you tell us about how exactly you work with farmers and what that looks like really in practice when you talk about empowering farmers?
Well, when we were smaller, we would always buy from middlemen. And as we've grown, we need to secure our supply lines, which means going direct to the farmers and also securing better prices, and knowing where our product comes from as well. So that is something that we are in the process of establishing, more of these relationships direct with farmers or farmer communities. There are certain ingredients that go into our products that we still import. So hibiscus is one of them. Hibiscus is just this beautiful flower that grows in everyone's garden here in Zambia. I mean, it grows like a weed, really. But nobody grows it commercially. So we have been importing it from Tanzania. And then we said, this is crazy. Is nobody growing it here? Can we not work with some farmers and see if we can get this cultivated? So that's what we did. We got seeds and we reached out. We found a community of farmers, 40 farmers, and we did this in combination or in conjunction with World Vision. They were extremely helpful. And we went out and worked with these farmers and gave them information about how to grow hibiscus, how to harvest it. So we gave them the seed and we promised, well, whatever you produce, we'll take it. We're going to buy it at this price. We'll buy it. And it wasn't that they changed they still continued doing the farming that they were doing prior, but they added this new crop as well to get extra income. And that has grown over time. It's now well over 100 farmers and we want to grow that even more. but it was out of like necessity for us. So yes, it's great that the farmers can earn more income, and we're introducing a new crop which grows naturally here anyway, but we've commercialized it, so that's fantastic. But it also helps us, so it's a win-win, truly. Unfortunately, the drought hit. The yields haven't been great the last couple of years, but they're improving now with the rains. But whatever they can grow, we will buy, and we're actively looking for more farmers.
While we're on the topic of empowerment, I would like you to tell me about an initiative that you have been leading, which is Nutrition Tandizo, alongside Umoyo, right? So for listeners who may not be familiar with this, what's the focus of that particular work, and what led you to starting that?
So Umoyo, it's all about nutrition. Natural foods that are going to uplift your health, that are adding to your health, not subtracting from your health. And we developed an incredible porridge. It's an instant porridge. We've put soya, millet, maize, sorghum in it. We put Zambia's 2 superfoods, which is baobab and moringa, in it. And then we also fortified it with 17 vitamins and minerals. So it's a powerhouse of nutrition. And you just add water, stir it, and you can eat it. It's a great snack as well. So that you can find on all the supermarket shelves. But there's a large part of the population, particularly kids, who are not getting the nutrition that they need. And when I say nutrition, I'm not just talking about the carbohydrates, the fats, the protein, but also the micronutrients. And all of that is so important, of course, for the development of a young child, both physically and mentally. And we thought, well, how could we take this porridge? Because there in that bowl, if you just have a bowl of this a day, then you get all the nutrition, particularly the micronutrients that you need, that a child needs for that day, for healthy development. How can we get this to kids who might be underprivileged? So we looked at schools and orphanages. And they took this porridge that we produced, and in the supermarket you find it in 500 grams, just a little packet on the supermarket shelf. But we put it in 25-kilo bags, so big bags. And then we work together with companies or private individuals who want to sponsor a school or an orphanage. And they can buy as many bags as they want and deliver to whatever orphanage or school that they're working with. And Umoyo does the same. And essentially, we're producing this at cost price. So we're not benefiting from it, but it's a way of us contributing to the community and the nutrition, particularly of kids, because this is so essential if we want a great country going forward, of course. Yeah, which we do. So
Amazing
that's how it started.
Work.
And actually,
Amazing work.
today is a very special day because I'm actually sitting
Please
here.
tell us about
You'll
it.
probably be sorry.
Please tell us about it. It's a special day.
So today is a very special day because today we're launching you're the first person to see this actually, our infant porridge. So we have an infant porridge here. Yes.
That looks amazing.
So,
Congratulations.
I'm very excited. So that's going into our shops today, and then hopefully you'll see that on the supermarket shelves soon. So we're continuing to innovate and create new products. Recently, we also have our ice pops, like the Freeze-Its. But the Freeze-Its you see on the street, it's all chemicals, artificial colorings, it's that neon green and orange and things. So artificial colorings, artificial flavorings. But ours, we have a baobab one, which is real baobab. I mean, this is a health food, but now you can take it as an ice pop. Or the hibiscus one, we've made a hibiscus one as well. So that you're going to see more out and about as well. So we're continuing in our innovation, bringing healthy, nutritious products to the market here.
That sounds amazing, Kim. And I can tell you're really part of the market and ecosystem. You're on the ground. For you to pick on Freeze-Its and providing a healthy alternative, I mean, that's just simply amazing. There's one last part of the business, Kim, that you mentioned, and I would like for you to speak about it a bit more. And this is because I am an endurance runner. I run long distances, and I'm actually training for my 90-kilometer run in South Africa. Fitness, nutrition, and the gym have been like important parts of my daily life. You spoke about the gym. Was that part of Umoyo or an extension of the Umoyo business? Could you tell us about that particular journey and how it went? Is the gym still open? And what does that look like, really?
Yeah. Yeah. So, no, that was not part of Umoyo. That was just my own little personal side passion that I pursued. Yeah. That unfortunately is not in existence today. What happened was it was a thriving business. I built it up. We had an incredible membership, and it was such an incredible community. Yes, we were doing fitness, but more than that, it was a community, and we organized all sorts of events and competitions and things. But what happened was when COVID hit, once again, COVID, the government shut down all the gyms. And for us, that meant 5 months. And that just destroyed the business, truly. And it was very, very difficult to pick up the pieces after that. So I actually sold that afterwards. I did try to resurrect it, but I didn't really manage. And then also because Umoyo needed my attention then, with everything going on, the business failing because of COVID on the Umoyo side, my attention was brought back to Umoyo and I invested my time there. So it was some things aren't meant to last forever. Some things are just part of the journey. And I've accepted that that was part of my journey. And I'm so grateful for that experience. I had so much fun. There were a lot of lessons learned, but mainly it was fun and community for me, building that business. Yeah.
Amazing. And leads me to my second last question, which is, I've heard you speak about separating self-worth from performance. And I think that's very key. Looking at the story and journey you just shared, there have been some lows, lots of highs as well. And you can see that it's quite important that you separate self from performance. What has changed or what shifted really when you made that, you came across that realization for you as a leader in business?
It's a great question. You see, we all have a fundamental question within us. And it's often not in the conscious mind. It's usually deep in the subconscious in our programming. And my fundamental question was, am I enough? And this was something that I asked, am I enough? And that really drove my actions, my decisions, everything. And I wasn't really sure. So part of my mission became to go out in the world and prove that I'm enough. And I did that by trying to succeed and do good and perform, get validation, just prove that I'm enough, that I deserve to be here, that I'm a valuable addition to the world. And it took me a long time before I came to the realization, and it's a realization, that your self-worth is not something you have to earn. It's certainly not something that someone gives you, that it's always there. And that's just a realization. And when I was able to separate my worth from the performance of, say, the business, that was a huge thing. Because in the past, if the business was doing well, I felt good about myself. Oh, I'm doing good. But if the business was failing, it was very easy for me to internalize that. Yes, the business is failing. Kim, you're a failure, internalizing as part of me. So to be able to separate that my worth has nothing to do with the external world and what's going on out here. It's completely intact always. That was huge. Because, for instance, in the past, if the business wasn't doing well or someone did a huge, humongous mistake, which cost us lots of money, I would get very emotionally invested on this. This was a huge problem, whereas now I find that, things always occur. There are always problems and challenges that are there, but I'm able to distance myself from it, that it doesn't impact me personally and my worth. And rather I can look at it more solution orientated. I don't have to get into the negativity and emotional, feeling really burdened by it. It's more like, okay, it is what it is. Now, how do we move forward? How do we make sure this doesn't happen again, rather than finger pointing and these kind of things that I got into the past? So I think recognizing my own worth, I mean, that is fundamentally what it is, has made me a better leader, for sure. And the way I manage people in a whole different way because of it.
That's so profound, Kim. Thank you. And for Umoyo right now, what does winning look like in the next 10 years? And please don't talk about revenue. I just want to hear what winning would look like for Umoyo in the next 10 years if you were to remove the revenue target.
Yeah. I think winning would mean that we continue on this trajectory, continue to make healthy, nutritious food accessible, and continue to make it more accessible to a wider audience in Zambia, but also beyond. I would love to see Umoyo beyond our Zambian borders, certainly in 10 years. I think also winning means continuing to come up with innovative products. So not stop where we are, just continuing this journey and making sure that that the company is not dependent on me. And that's already happening. I mean, the way I manage the company today is not getting into the day-to-day responsibilities really, but even more so that I can go forward and continue the work that I'm doing with teaching and inspiring, the speaking and workshops and so on. And I think in 10 years, I want to look back and see that, Umoyo, we really made a difference. We really helped improve people's lives. We gave people opportunities like the farmers, and we stayed true to who we are throughout it all. I think that truly is what success would look like for us, for me.
That's amazing. That was my last question, Kim. But you touched on something that I think it's very important, and I've heard you talk about this, as you spoke about not getting into the daily nitty-gritty activity of the business as a business owner. And I heard you talk about it's not enough just to set systems and managing those systems. Could you talk about that as well as we close the session?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in the beginning, I did everything, as you do when you're starting a business, you do everything. I was in the shop selling the product. I was ordering the product. I was getting the permits and licenses from all the government agencies. I was doing the marketing. I was doing payroll. I was doing everything. And when you do everything, well, then you understand everything, and you know exactly how much money is coming in and out, and you have your finger in all the pies kind of thing. But as the company grows, that's no longer possible, of course. So that's when the systems come in. But it's also, I had to change how I looked at myself, how I defined myself. Because in the beginning, if you recall, I was a therapist. That was what I did. That's how I defined. That was my identity. I'm a therapist. I help people. I'm not an entrepreneur. No, I'm a therapist, and then I became a business owner. And now I certainly have to manage people. Oh, I have to become a manager and learn those skills and change my identity. I'm not just a therapist. I'm a manager. Kim, you're a manager now. And then over time, I've had to become a leader. I'm not just managing people. I have to lead them. So now my role is very much about decisions, about people, about direction, about strategy. That's how the role has evolved over time. I'm no longer involved in the everyday execution. And the way I manage that, and it's evolved over time, but now I come in once a week for a full management team meeting, and all the heads of department are there: wholesale, procurement, warehouse, manufacturing, retail, all of them, accounts, marketing, they're all there. And they have certain reports that they present, and then we have discussions about the direction of what's not working. And why this works so well is that we can make decisions quickly. Before, I used to meet with each department on its own, but I quickly found that to solve one department's issues, it involves, everything's interlinked, So if we have a problem with wholesale and they're saying, well, we didn't get the stock. Well, what happened to manufacturing? Well, manufacturing is sitting right here in the meeting. Let's ask them. Well, they didn't get what they needed, the raw materials from procurement. What happened? Oh, we didn't get it from accounting. It wasn't paid on time. So whatever the issue is, we can solve it immediately. And that's how I manage the organization now going forward. And then, of course, if there are additional things, they will come to me. But I don't get involved with the execution of stuff. We make the decisions at that meeting. We agree the way forward. And then everyone in the teams, they go out and actually execute. So it's been quite the journey. But in order for that to work, like you said, you need systems. You need systems. You need to track things. You need to have operating procedures of this is how we do it here. And then, like you rightly said, no point in having systems unless you then check the systems, that you check all the protocols. And that's something that we're going through right now, actually, because although we have systems in place, they haven't been fully integrated. And now we are looking at technological solutions, softwares that integrates everything so that it's not so segmented. So we're still going through these growing pains. We are by no means on the other side of it yet. There's a lot still to be done. But like I said, we are constantly trying to move forward, constantly trying to do better. And we still make mistakes. And there have been some major mistakes. But we don't give up, and we make sure we learn from them. So, yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Kim. You've been such an inspiring and brilliant guest. I'm super excited. We invited you and you accepted our invitation to be on the podcast. For anyone who would like to find you, where can they and connect with you? Where can they find you exactly?
Well, anything related to Umoyo, just go to umoyo.com. But if it's more to do with me and the work I'm doing in terms of the inspiration and passion, purpose, aligning with who you truly are, achieving your greatness, then it's my name, Kim Otteby. And I'm the only Kim Otteby in the whole world. So it should be very easy to find me on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. And if you can't remember my name, just search Umoyo and Kim and you'll get the full name there.
Thank you, Kim. And to our audience, again, thank you so much for joining us in this conversation. We hope you found so much inspiration and learned about your own entrepreneurial journey, insights from Kim and the business that she's leading and building at Umoyo. And please, to support our work, always remember to like, share, refer this episode to a friend, and subscribe to our channel. So thanks so much. Until next time, this was Beyond the Pivot.
Thank you for joining us on Beyond the Pivot. Remember to subscribe, follow, and share this episode with anyone passionate about Africa's future in business. For more stories and extra resources, visit tambotiseko.com. Until next time, keep pushing boundaries and shaping the future of African entrepreneurship.